Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 40th Video Community of Practice meeting. I'm Pankaj Agrawal, founder of Next Software Solutions and working group leader of this community of practice. Um, so let's get started. Today we have Andrew from LlamaSoft, and he'll be talking about how he's implementing video profile in his software. Um, so I'll share, I think, the presenter role. I hope I'm doing it right. So you have got two. You have joined with two places, I guess. Which one should I give the role?
Um, the one with the video is my laptop.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that's me.
Okay. Great.
uh, so yeah, well, definitely thank you for asking me to present and to talk about this stuff. It's something we've been really working on and have been pretty excited that there's been any interest. It's kind of hard to judge. We're excited about it, but it's always cool to meet people and talk with people who are also excited about it. Um, but yeah, essentially, I work for a company called LlamaSoft, and
Mhm.
we're a supply chain consulting and software company. And so we work with big companies, and we have a really complex product. And so as part of that, we've created a lot of video tutorials and a lot of learning content to help people kind of use the product and get a greater understanding. And what we really noticed was, especially with the videos that we were creating and putting on our help system, we didn't have a great or we had very limited visibility into how people were using those videos, if they were finding them helpful, and I mean, really just wanting to answer the question, is anyone watching these, and if they are watching them, then what are they getting out of them? So is learning occurring? And so we had done a little bit of research about xAPI as a solution for e-learning, and we had decided that based on what we understood about it as a spec for e-learning, and in general, this would probably be something that we could potentially kind of scale up. So here, I'll actually start sharing my presentation. So as and this is we had the chance, myself and my coworker Dave, we had a chance to talk about this stuff at Demo Fest, and that was kind of what originally got me connected with Patrick, and he approached me about maybe presenting some of this stuff in the group meeting, but this is a bit of the slide deck, but yeah, like we had videos that were embedded within our help. Our help is built in Flare, and like all these interactions that you're seeing on the screen right now, like those were things that we weren't able to capture. So um, things like plays, pauses, um, uh, completions, and termination, and then even if someone was using the volume. And so we what I did was I started building kind of proof of concepts, and actually uh, I used Anthony. I used a couple of your articles as kind of roadmaps. It's definitely cool to talk to you and thank you for that. Was able to just build a basic like click and send a statement, and then was able to then do a local video and track some interactions on that. But definitely realized that once we started getting some statements in, that it was going to be very important to look at how this information was getting organized. And so using the profile made a lot of sense. Um, so really looking at making sure that our verbs were consistent and that they were consistent, not only for us, but they aligned with what other people were doing in terms of sending statements and capturing information. That was something that we were really clear on kind of upfront that we needed to do that. Um, so um, these are just some of the statements that we got. But as we were working on this, also something else that came out was just um, we kind of had a stream of statements that were coming in, and we noticed that we were able to kind of piece things together with timestamps. But we, very early on kind of had this realization of like, well, what if two people were going through the same video at the same time? So our solution was to create a random number generator. And the cool thing about that was that we realized that if we created the random number on page load, we could actually and then assign that as the actor. That actor information would stay consistent as someone interacted with in Flare. It's actually a table, but with the element on the page. And so that we get stuff like what you're seeing on the screen right now, where we can say, okay, this actor, 185743, they went to this video and they did these three actions. They were full screen. They hit pause and they completed. And so, in the same way that the profile helped to give some clarity in terms of the verbs we would use and how we would organize that information, as soon as we knew that we could do an actor on page level, that gave us some additional clarity and some additional ability to aggregate the data in a meaningful way. And, essentially, because this was a proof of concept, we knew that we would never be able to do, say, a cookie. And we also knew that we didn't want to have people manually enter their name. And so by being able to come up with a random number generator, we were still able to get that actor level aggregation, but we could do it in a way that wasn't intrusive and was able to work kind of within the policy guidelines that we would be given for a proof of concept. Some of the results that we were able to get are things like this. What we've got here, we've got three individual actors, and they're actually going through the same video. But here's like the interactions that are taking place. So we have, um, you know, um, triangles for plays and pluses for pause. And then we've also got completed and full screen on a few of these statements. And so uh, we were able to go to the people who were creating the help system, maintaining the help system, and this became extremely helpful. Additionally, for example, this video, uh, the product that this video is a tutorial for was just updated. And so we're actually being asked to update those videos as well. There happened to be 75 videos for that product, which ended up being like, I think, around 220 minutes. There are three of us who are doing this work, sometimes four. And it would have been a huge effort to go through and update all of these videos. And so with this, we're able to say, okay, which of these videos are most commonly used, which are less used, where can we prioritize our resources and our effort and kind of get a more meaningful update when we do update these things. So along those lines, like here we have, and this is actually not a complete list of all the videos that we offer, but these are each of these titles on the left are a video, and each of the colors are a different actor. So we were able to, again, like kind of aggregate up and get a more meaningful picture of how people were interacting with, our help and what was being valued and like where would our efforts be, uh, be most rewarded and most meaningful. So, in terms of like, like big lessons learned, I think one of the biggest things was really like the need to have a clear data strategy going in. We actually did that, and there were still things that we found we had to go back and work on the statement, revise what we had done, iterate based on, data points not aligning or, things not making sense within the spec. And also, I mean, this was a huge learning process for me and the team. I had never worked with xAPI in like a very meaningful way. It all kind of been exploratory, and this was something over the course of the year we had some help with. So we partnered with the Learning Ninjas, but a lot of the initial getting off the ground was just utilizing the resources that were out there. So I mentioned Anthony's articles, but looking at the information on Git and becoming more familiar with just what the spec did, how it been used in the past. Those kind of things were extremely helpful, um, and it was by doing that stuff that I think I was really able to leverage any of the time that we worked with Learning Ninjas and specifically Sean Putman on a lot of this stuff. So with that kind of overview, I'd love to hear questions or thoughts or any kind of insights that people on the line might have.
So are you using this video profile or something different?
Um, what do you mean? Do
I
you?
mean, I mean the way you send the play, pause, and those statements. Uh, we have created this video profile which defines how you do that. So, are you using it, or are you doing it on your own, or using some other profile?
Uh, n- no, I'm. So yeah, I've been using like the structure and organization of the profile. Yeah.
Okay, great. Um, so. So basically, in this chart, you are trying to figure out which tutorials were or which videos were used the most.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we didn't know what was even our most popular video. We didn't
Mm,
know what had the most traffic or the most interactions. And
mhm,
so, like being able to create a visualization and then show that to um, other teams and other kind of stakeholders, like that became really important in our uh, as we developed the stuff. It gave us a lot more weight when we got in those conversations.
that's great. Uh, did you find any issues with the profile or anything that could be improved?
I think there was I can't remember which verb it was that I actually wasn't able to locate in the profile. I uh, but there
Terminated?
was what's that?
Terminated?
Yep. So terminated was one that I ended up using, and then also I think it was mute. I ended up just going whether they changed the volume or not, but yeah, there. But it was definitely helpful to know that like people were capturing that information and had mapped that out prior to myself. Like that became really interesting. That this was
Mm,
like, once I basically went into the developer and saw that like there were all the events on the object that I could put individual or have uh, statements send on. That
mm,
became like a moment where I was able to kind of open up and start capturing a lot more information.
yeah. So in the video profile, we have a verb called interacted, and all these events, especially the environment related events like volume change or mute, uh, or full screen, or subtitles, or those kind of changes that
Hmm.
happens with interaction with the video object, apart from the play pause kind of events, are captured by that one verb interacted. And
Okay.
getting the information on what happened is based on the uh, extensions used in the statement. So if the volume changes to mute, it is volume 0. If it is full volume, it is volume 1, and
Okay.
things like that. So there are a lot of things that can be captured, and all that information is on the profile document. You can see all the extensions that can be used.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So we have been working on this since like last 4 years, I guess, and we have developed this profile where we are able to capture all those events. And for the most common events like played and paused or seeked, we have separate verbs. And then we also capture what parts of the videos were watched, and then use that to calculate if the user had completed in the entire video. So generally, people would just check if the user reached the end. But in the case of this video profile, what we do is we check what parts of the video user has watched, and then be able to calculate if the user has completed the entire video or not, and send a completion verb based on that. And we can also calculate the entire amount of time spent on the video. So it can be more than the length of the video if the user has repeated parts of the video.
Yeah, and Yeah, I was, um, based on the information out there, yeah, I was able to do to capture that. Well, like especially the completed and if they'd um, been able to kind of go through the video and um, but yeah, like the time that was actually something that I did. That was actually something I had to go back and revise. I had that originally going as a result. And obviously, like the time of the video, like putting that as an extension, that makes I think a lot more sense. Like when you're trying to
Mhm.
organize that and go through the data later.
Yeah. Um, Apart from that, you have used different numbers for the name and the same email ID for the identifier for that actor.
Yeah. So initially, as I said, like there, we knew we wouldn't be able to get a lot of information on the actor. So we were told that like, or it was communicated to us that like they didn't want to have actors like going in and filling out like an email or
Mhm.
having a form to insert any information. So yeah, like just having a random number generator seemed like a fairly like fine solution initially.
Yeah.
And as a result, like we've actually because we've been able to demonstrate like how helpful it would be to be able to connect like users returning. We're actually in conversations with our legal department and our IT department, and we're hopeful about being able to implement a cookie by sometime by the end of the quarter. So in 2019, we'll be able to track people with a cookie. It'll still have a random generated user ID, um, but we'll be able to see if people come back and watch a video more than once.
Mhm. Yeah. So there is no standard for unknown people where there is no login or information provided by the user. But in in terms of the experience API, if you have uh, random or unique name, you could probably also change the uh, email ID, even if it is not a valid email ID. It could be changed to something based on that number, or maybe you could use the SHA sum instead of the email ID, or there is alternative option for using account. So there are several different
Oh, I see.
possibilities, but if you are changing the name, you would probably assume that it is a different person, and if you're assuming it is a different person, you could probably want to change the identifier as well. So if you're using an email ID, you can change the email ID even if it is not a valid email ID. uh, what we have used in our software, not this video profile. Um, uh, I'm from Next Software Solutions, so we have a product called Grassblade, and there, if there is an a user which is not logged in, we track using their IP address. So in that case, we use something like guest and then the IP address as the name as well as the email ID. So guest IP address and then at the rate whatever domain name. So in case of email IP address, you could track that user if he returns with the same IP address. Yes, there can be conflict if two users come from same IP, but
Right. Yeah.
depending on the country of origin of those users, it might not conflict.
Yeah, and yeah, we've we yeah been told that like cookie is okay, but for some reason IP is not. But yeah, I think you're right. Like it would probably be really helpful to have the email line up to that to more of a unique identifier. So we're also doing like page hits and what people are searching in the help. We've also been able to build out that as well. And yeah, right now we just do the email is just video at Llamasoft or page at Llamasoft or search at Llamasoft. So that's all we do for the email currently. But I think you're right. If you could put some kind of identifier in there or give a little more information, that makes sense. Like I can see why that would be helpful.
Yeah, so it could be like video dot and then the number you have in the name and @Lamasoft. And then if you have a unique identifier, you can pull statements for that specific uh, identifier or that email ID from the
Okay.
LRS.
Okay. Yeah.
We also have a unique identifier in the profile as well. So if you have checked at the session ID, uh, it is kind of a unique identifier for that specific session. So if you generate a unique session ID for a page load, all the statements sent for that page uh, from that page or from that video launch would have the same session ID. So that is part of the video profile. So apart from the name, you could also use that session ID for identifying for identifying if it is from a particular user or a particular launch.
That sounds good too. That's excellent. Yeah.
And xAPI also has a registration property. So in case of repeating user, that can be useful as well.
You want to be careful using registration though, because if you're going to, you can't query by registration. So it's good information to have. Don't get me wrong, but if you want to pull any statements relating to that registration, you can't query context.
Okay. I thought we can query. We cannot query by session ID of video profile, but I was assuming that we can, but I might be wrong. So
no, the query.context or the context.registration. Yeah, that's not. You can't query by that. You can only query by actor. I'll say actor ID, which could be one of a few different ways. Actor ID, verb ID, object ID, statement ID, and timestamp. Really.
And that's out of the box. There's nothing to stop an LRS from actually implementing queries like that. And we've actually even talked about building a separate query API profile onto xAPI so that we can expand and so that LRSs can have a target of the same way to implement these querying capabilities.
Yeah, I think if we're going to add it as the 5th API, I would agree with that. I would be really nervous with an LRS going rogue with that.
Yeah, I mean it's something that's been talked about. It hasn't been moved forward in any way though. So
yeah. I mean, I would love to see I would like to see query pulled out as its own API and bolstered a little, because it is pretty limiting. It's surprisingly limiting.
Yeah, it is. It's true.
I'm checking the xAPI spec, and I guess registration is there. So in the get statements,
Now the other,
parameters, there is a registration, parameter as well. So for a specific registration, if you know the UUID of that registration, you could pull all the statements for that registration. If you can see my screen, you see the table there.
Oh yeah, okay, there it is. I was gonna say, yeah. That's
oh yeah, okay.
I was gonna say because I thought we did it in CMI5. It was just drawn blank, and I was more interested in going in the bit on the expanding the query API because that needs to be done regardless.
Well, yeah, when I say the fifth API, that's what I mean, because you've got the 4 APIs that are there now. Statement agent, activity, state. What's the other one?
Registration, related activities, related agent, since, until, limit. So this is part of the xAPI spec.
Right. No, I'm trying to remember what are the 4 APIs for xAPI. There's statement, agent, activity,
State and activity.
Resource and
Statement, state, and activity.
and agent. Those are the 4.
Yep.
Yep. So yes, a separate API for more complicated requests would be good.
Now, of course, that's
yes.
You can, if you're using the front end analytics tool that comes with the LRS, or if you've connected your LRS to Oracle, SAP, any of those analytics tools, you can put whatever you want. Those are just Oracle queries or Mongo queries.
Yeah. Yeah. If you have control over the LRS, you can do anything you want. So you could directly go into database and make database queries. So that's great to see what you have been doing with the video profile. It would be great to see any feedbacks you have regarding the profile, and if there is anything we can help with.
Yeah, no, definitely appreciate that. It just knowing like it existed and that there were like I said that there were standards that I could go by. That became extremely helpful, especially when we started to query um, and build visualizations and things like that. Having the data structure beforehand was extremely helpful. And just out of curiosity, I was kind of wondering for LRSs, what are people using? Like we're actually currently on Riptide, but they obviously just got purchased, and we're not really sure what's going to be the next step with them. So love to hear about what people are using or have used.
I think any LRS could be used. I'm not sure which LRSs have specific reports for video profile, but I think
yeah, I would say. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, for a selection purpose, I mean, the reality is the LRS, and I'm going to catch some hell for saying this, but the reality is the LRS, they're all the same. Because it's the LRS itself is controlled by the specification. So they all do the same thing. It's the things that sit between you and the LRS, that front end service. And as Pankaj mentioned, what reporting capabilities do you have? What export, import, any of those functions? And how do you want those reports? I think that really is going to drive your decision on which LRS to finally land with. You know, if you look at Yet Analytics, for example, their reports tend to be a little bit more relational.
Yeah.
Watershed tends to be more of a bar graph, you know, and that's fine. You know, if that's what you need, great. But if it's not what you need, that might be, something of an issue. So, I mean, that's, that and pricing. How do they price the number of registrants or the number of statements, or, how that? But the LRS itself is, I'm just going to apologize and say they all do the same thing, because it's controlled by the SPAC,
Mm-hmm. No, that's definitely helpful. Yeah.
Because right now, I'm trying to think. Right now, I know a couple people are using Watershed. I know a couple people using Veracity, and I know one company that's using Storm Cloud, but they're not really doing any. How do I say this? They're not doing any real serious reporting. So they're just using Storm Cloud to collect, I think, like completions, and they're using that to drive billing.
Okay.
Yeah, so on reporting side, I don't think any LRS has very extensive reporting specific to video profile, but some have started customizing it. So our LRS, Grassblade LRS, has a little bit of it. I think Jason, I don't remember the name of his company. Jason Hack. Anthony, do you remember?
That's Veracity.
Yeah, Veracity. So Veracity is building some reporting related to video profile. So I believe others will come up too. So you can expect most of them will support video profile in some form or the other.
Okay.
Any other questions from anyone? Okay, so there's not much I want to talk about this week. I haven't been able to work on the issues we had found with the prototype. So I hope I'll be able to work on it this month. So there is not much, only few issues remaining on the prototype. No more issues that has come up with the video profile itself. So we are kind of in the release stage. It'll be great to have the prototype finished. The remaining issues on the prototype finished before we call it a release. So anyone else has anything new that want to share?
I will just share. I'm happy to share some self-promotional news. I missed DevLearn this year, in part because I spent the week at LinkedIn Learning, and we recorded an introductory course on xAPI. So we are right now expecting that to go live in mid-December.
Great.
Yeah, that's excellent. That's very exciting.
Where will it be hosted?
It's LinkedIn Learning.
Okay, great. That's great.
Yeah, congrats too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anthony. So Anthony, is that public now? I know you told me about that before.
Well, it's public to the extent of, I know I recorded the course. I know it's a practical introduction to xAPI. We haven't settled on the name, and we haven't settled on the release date yet.
Okay.
So,
well, just when you know that, let me know, and I won't publicize any of this. Then.
you can say that it's coming, but we're not entirely certain when.
Okay.
Right now we're estimating mid. I know he wanted it out mid-December. But like, what day is mid-December?
Right.
And I will share that in the course, the two LRSs that I do use are Veracity and Storm Cloud.
Okay.
So if
I
you're
hope
looking,
you have.
you can check those out.
I hope you have talked about video profile too.
It is. There's a link to the profile, and it's mentioned once or twice. I forget. It's definitely mentioned at the end. It's mentioned in the what's next section.
Okay, great. So it'll help a lot in people getting started with xAPI and learning. There's not much organized content around xAPI. There's a xAPI MOOC effort going on with John Keevan leading the group.
Yeah, I actually had to drop out of that for somewhat obvious reasons.
Mm-hmm.
I had a bit of a conflict of interest there.
So, yeah, but anyway, even if there is conflict of interest, I guess the more courses we have, the more people get involved, and the more it serves all the courses around. So it should anyway help everyone. So it'll be great to have some more courses around so that people can learn and get started with xAPI and use xAPI more than they are doing. I know that a lot of people are already using xAPI in production. We have got a lot of customers, so I can say that yes, people are using xAPI in production, but I'm not sure how many are developing xAPI or building their own statements. So these courses will help them do that as well, and will help the ecosystem. So
yeah, I think for me, and for those of us who worked on that, the primary thing that we've noticed is a lot of people are saying, "Oh, xAPI, you can do this. We're not going to tell you how. You figure that out on yourself. But you can do it." So, Andrew, you had mentioned my articles. The course is done very much in that vein. So there are, it was very important to us to provide some working examples and take a very practical approach of, hey, you want to do this? Here's how, without getting very codey. So it's not a programming course. But yeah, that was, and the reason we did it is because they had heard that from multiple clients, that people were looking for courses, or looking for courseware, looking for articles, looking for information that wasn't, oh, hey, you can do this awesome thing. Good luck. We're not going to tell you how, but you can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so the cool thing is like being newer to this, it felt like there's more and more stuff coming out there that's actually tangible and like step by step. And so, but yeah, initially it was I found a lot of stuff that was older that was based, like encouraging people to get into it, but not really giving those specifics about, here's how to achieve that, or here's how to make a plan. So, what you're doing is sustainable and scalable, and so, but it seems like, even being at DevLearn this year, it seemed like people were going in that direction more frequently. So that's exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. So as more people are getting involved, things are improving both on the learning part as well as the implementation part. So the real fruits will come when we have a lot more reporting and analysis available with the xAPI, and that data is used more than it is being used. There is not much done so far, I believe, but yeah, that would be great as things improve on that as well. So we have 6 more minutes, but we can end early unless anyone has anything else to say or any questions.
Well, I definitely wanted to, thank you guys for letting me talk about this stuff. I know when Patrick mentioned it at DevLearn, I was definitely interested in learning more, and I feel like I'm, especially since I'm getting more and more into this in terms of like my responsibilities and in my current role, it's definitely very helpful to find out more resources. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, I also appreciate you taking the time to share what you have been doing, and it is really encouraging to see the profile and seeing the fruits of it. It is really great to see that, and it's great that you have taken the time to share what you have learned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day. Let's meet next month.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks all. Bye.
Bye.